The first thing I noticed wasn't the heat, but the silence. There was no screaming siren, no strobe light pulsing on the wall, only the quiet, wet crackle of wood splitting apart in the dark. I put my hand to the bedroom door and pulled it back with a gasp as the metal seared my skin. By the time I clawed my way out the window, the hallway behind me was a furnace, and I knew, even then, that something was wrong. The first thing I noticed was not the heat, but the silence. I woke up because my throat felt coated in something thick and bitter, like I had swallowed a handful of old pennies. I sat up in bed, blinking into the darkness of my apartment, trying to understand why the air tasted like melting plastic. It was 3 a.m. in Marrowgate, Ohio, and usually, the only sound at this hour was the distant hum of traffic on the bridge or the heavy clunk of the radiator pipes. But the silence was absolute. It was a vacuum, heavy and waiting. I swung my legs out of bed and my bare feet hit the floorboards. Then I heard it. A faint, wet crackling sound coming from the living room. It sounded like someone crumpling stiff paper, over and over again. "Hello?" I called out. My voice was a croak. I walked toward the bedroom door. I reached for the brass knob, my hand moving on muscle memory, but before my skin even made contact, I felt the radiant heat punching through the wood. It was an angry, solid wall of temperature that stopped me cold. I pulled my hand back, breathless, and stared at the gap beneath the door. Thick, black smoke was curling under the frame, moving fast, like pressurized water. Panic did not hit me like a wave. It hit me like a physical blow to the stomach. I scrambled back, tripping over my own duvet, and scrambled toward the window. My third-floor apartment in Cedar Ridge Flats faced the alleyway, where a rusted fire escape zigzagged down the brick facade. I fought with the latch, my fingernails scraping against the peeling paint, until the window groaned upward. Cold November air rushed in, feeding the fire behind me. I heard a roar from the living room, a sudden inhalation of oxygen that shook the walls. I did not look back. I climbed out onto the metal grate, shivering in my thin cotton pajamas, and looked down. Below me, the alley was bathed in a flickering orange glow. I looked to my left and saw flames punching through the windows of the corridor. Licking up the side of the building, the glass blew out with a sound like a shotgun blast. Showering the pavement below in glittering shards, I scrambled down the metal stairs, the iron biting into my bare soles. When I hit the ground, I ran. I ran until I was across the street, standing on the cracked sidewalk next to a dumpster, gasping for air that didn't taste like poison. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my phone twice before I could dial 911. "Fire," I stuttered to the dispatcher. "Cedar Ridge Flats, 400 block of Elm. It is big. It is everywhere. Units are already en route." "Ma'am," the voice said, calm and detached. I lowered the phone and looked around. That was when the strangeness of it settled over me. The building was burning. The third-floor hallway was an inferno, but there was no alarm. The high-pitched shriek of the building-wide system, the one that usually went off if someone burned popcorn in Unit 2B, was completely silent, and there were people. A cluster of my neighbors stood near the corner, wrapped in coats, holding cat carriers and grab bags. They were watching the fire with grim, tired expressions. They did not look like people who had just been woken up by a near-death experience. They looked like people who had been waiting. "Did you hear an alarm?" I asked a woman standing nearby. It was Mrs. Gable from the second floor. She was clutching a heavy winter coat over her nightgown. She looked at me, her face illuminated by the dancing firelight. "No," she said. "I smelled smoke about 20 minutes ago. I woke up my husband and we just got out. I thought maybe someone was grilling late." 20 minutes. The fire had been eating the building for 20 minutes, and the system had said nothing. By the time the sirens finally cut through the night air, screaming down Elm Street, the roof was beginning to sag. The reunification point was a chaotic tent set up in the parking lot of a 24-hour grocery store 2 blocks away. Marrowgate Fire and Rescue had mobilized quickly, handing out gray wool blankets and bottles of water. The air smelled of diesel exhaust and wet ash. A paramedic sat me down on the back of an ambulance. He pressed a plastic mask over my nose and mouth, forcing cool oxygen into my lungs. "Deep breaths," he said. "Your oxygen levels are a little low, but your lungs sound clear. You are lucky." I nodded. Clutching the gray blanket around my shoulders, I looked down at my feet. They were black with soot and bleeding slightly from a cut on my heel. I hadn't felt happen. That was when the inventory started running through my head. I had my phone. I had the pajamas I was wearing. I did not have my wallet. I did not have my car keys. I did not have my work badge for Ketter and Rowe. I did not have a charger. I did not have socks. I was 33 years old, an office administrator with a degree and a 401k, and I was sitting on a bumper in a grocery store parking lot with absolutely nothing. The humiliation was a cold stone in my gut. It wasn't just the loss of things. It was the sudden, violent stripping away of my dignity. I looked like a child who had lost her parents at the fair. A Red Cross volunteer came by with a clipboard. "Do you have somewhere to stay tonight, honey?" she asked. "We have a shelter opening at the high school gym." I stiffened. The idea of sleeping on a cot in a gymnasium, surrounded by strangers, felt impossible. I had a safety net. I had family. "I have parents," I said, my voice raspy. "They live in Larkhill Heights. I will call them." The volunteer smiled, relieved to have one less person to worry about. "That is good. Do you need a phone charger?" "Please," I said. She lent me a portable battery block. I plugged in my phone, watched the Apple logo flicker to life, and scrolled to the contact labeled Mom and Dad. I hesitated. It was 4 a.m. They would be asleep in their 4-bedroom colonial on the hill, safe behind their security gate and their manicured hedges. Gordon and Celeste Bryant did not like surprises. They did not like drama. They liked scheduled visits and polite dinners where we discussed the weather and the stock market. But my apartment was burning down. Surely, this was the exception. I pressed call. It rang 4 times before my mother picked up. Her voice was thick with sleep, but sharp. "Willow? It is 4 a.m. Is everything all right?" "Mom," I said, and to my horror, my voice cracked. I bit my lip, forcing myself to stabilize. "Mom, there was a fire. My apartment building, it is gone, or mostly gone. I am out. I am safe." There was a pause. I waited for the gasp. I waited for her to ask if I was hurt, if I was cold, if I needed them to come get me. "A fire," Celeste said. She sounded like I had told her there was a traffic jam. "That is terrible. Willow, I am at the reunification point," I said, speaking quickly. "I do not have my car keys. I do not have anything. I was wondering if you could come get me, or if I could take an Uber to your place for a few days, just until I figure out the insurance." Another pause. This one was longer. I could hear my father mumbling in the background. "Gordon asks what happened," Celeste said. "I do not know," I said. "I woke up and it was burning." "Willow," Celeste said. Her tone shifted. It was the tone she used when I was a teenager and had forgotten to take out the trash. It was polite, flat, and absolutely final. "We are very glad you are safe. That is the important thing." "Yes," I said, "but I have nowhere to go." "You are an adult," Celeste said. "You have insurance, do you not? You have savings." Yes, but it is 4 a.m. I am barefoot. If we come get you, it just delays you dealing with the reality of the situation," she said. "We are not getting involved in this chaos. Willow, you know how your father gets with stress. We cannot have that energy in the house right now." I sat there, the phone pressed against my ear, staring at a firefighter coiling a hose. "You aren't getting involved?" I repeated. "Mom, my house burned down." "It is an apartment, Willow, not a house, and this is part of life. You need to figure it out. Call us when you are settled." The line went dead. I pulled the phone away from my ear and stared at the screen. The call had lasted 2 minutes and 14 seconds. They hadn't even asked if I had inhaled smoke. They hadn't asked if I was alone. We are not getting involved. I felt a tear slide down my soot-stained cheek, hot and stinging. I wiped it away furiously with the back of my hand. I would not cry, not here, not in front of the neighbors who were already whispering about how the alarm hadn't gone off. I looked up at the Red Cross volunteer who was hovering nearby. "Actually," I said, my voice hardening, "is there a list of motels? I think I will just find a room." The next morning was a blur of caffeine and adrenaline. I had managed to get a cheap room at a Motel 6 off the highway using my credit card number, which I had memorized years ago. I had showered, scrubbing the black residue from my skin until I was raw, and put my smoky clothes back on because I had no other option. I took a cab to Keter and Row Billing Services. I couldn't miss work. I needed the money now more than ever, and I needed to print out my insurance documents. When I walked in, the fluorescent lights felt aggressive. My eyes were red and swollen. I smelled like a campfire. Trina Madsen, my supervisor, intercepted me before I could even reach my cubicle. Trina was a woman who weaponized empathy. She wore soft cardigans and spoke in a gentle, nursery school teacher voice, but she tracked bathroom breaks down to the second. "Willow," she said, putting a hand on my arm. "Oh my goodness, I saw the news. Cedar Ridge, right?" "Yes," I said. "I am sorry I'm late. I had to handle everything." Of course," Trina said. She steered me toward the break room. "Do you want some tea? You look exhausted." "I am fine," I lied. "I just need to print some forms and call the insurance company on my lunch break." Trina leaned against the counter, crossing her arms. Her expression was full of concern, but her eyes were cold. "Listen, Willow, we all care about you, but we are coming up on the quarter-end close. It is a high-pressure time." "I know," I said. "I will get my work done. I promise." "I know you want to," Trina said, "but drama, it can be distracting, for the whole team, if you are going to be dealing with adjusters and housing and all that. Maybe you should take some unpaid time?" "I cannot afford unpaid time," I said quickly. "I lost everything. Trina." "Right," she said. She sighed. "Look, I need a plan. By the end of the week, I need to know that you are stable, that this isn't going to be a lingering issue. Instability is a liability for the department, you understand? We need focus." "I am focused," I said, though my hands were shaking at my sides. "Good," she said, flashing a bright, empty smile. "Get us a plan. Willow, 1 week." She patted my arm again and walked away. I stood in the break room, watching the coffee pot drip. 1 week? I had 1 week to rebuild my entire life, or I would lose my paycheck too. At 2 in the afternoon, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Ms. Bryant? This is Dale Pritchard from Hallowbrook Property Group." His voice was smooth, deep, and practiced. I had only met the property manager twice, once when I signed my lease, and once when I complained about the radiator. "Yes," I said. "We are so devastated by the incident last night," he said. "Truly, we are organizing a limited walkthrough for residents on the 3rd floor to retrieve essential items. The fire marshal has cleared us for a very short window. Are you nearby?" "I can be there in 20 minutes, I said. When I arrived at Cedar Ridge Flats, the building looked like a skull. The windows were black hollows. The brick was scorched. Yellow caution tape wrapped around the perimeter, flapping in the wind. Dale Pritchard was waiting in the lobby. The lobby itself was untouched, the beige tile and fake ficus trees looking bizarrely normal. Dale was a man in his 40s with hair that was gelled too tightly to his head and a suit that looked expensive but fit poorly. "Willow," he said, stepping forward with a sad smile. "I am so sorry. Just terrible." "Can I go up?" I asked. I didn't want his pity. "We have an escort," he said. He gestured to a large man in a yellow vest holding a flashlight. 5 minutes. Grab essentials only. The structure is stable, but we cannot have you lingering." I followed the man up the stairs. The smell got worse with every step. The carpet on the 2nd floor was soggy. The carpet on the third floor was gone, replaced by charred wood and puddles of black water. We reached my door. It had been kicked in by the firefighters. I stepped inside. My living room was a cave of charcoal. The sofa was a skeleton of springs. The television was a melted lump of plastic. My books, hundreds of them, were wet. Gray pulp. I walked to the bedroom. It was better, but everything was smoke-damaged. I grabbed my jewelry box. I grabbed a handful of underwear from the drawer that was still intact. I found my passport in the nightstand. Then I looked up. I was standing in the hallway between the bedroom and the bathroom. I remembered looking at the ceiling the day I moved in. There had been a round, white smoke detector there. I remembered it because it had a small green light that blinked every 60 seconds, which used to annoy me when I tried to sleep. I looked at the spot now. The detector was gone. It hadn't melted. If it had melted. There would be plastic slag stuck to the drywall. There was nothing, just a clean, round circle of lighter paint where the device used to be, and 2 copper wires dangling down like severed nerves. "Time is up," the escort said from the doorway. "Wait," I said. I pointed at the ceiling. "Where is my smoke detector?" The man shrugged. "Fire department probably knocked it down." "It is not on the floor," I said, kicking at the debris. "And there is no mounting plate. It looks like it was unscrewed." "We gotta go, miss," the man said, his voice firm. I let him lead me out. But the image of those 2 wires burned into my mind. Back in the lobby, Dale Pritchard was waiting with a clipboard. "Did you get what you needed?" he asked kindly. "Some of it," I said. "Listen," Dale said, lowering his voice. "We know this is hard. Hallowbrook wants to help. We have vouchers for the Marriott downtown, 3 nights, fully paid, and we are refunding your security deposit immediately, plus $500 for inconvenience." He held out a pen and a document. "I just need you to sign this receipt," he said. "Standard stuff, just acknowledging you received the assistance." I took the paper. My eyes scanned the dense paragraphs. It wasn't just a receipt. "The undersigned hereby releases Hallowbrook Property Group and its affiliates from any and all liability regarding the incident on November 3rd. Accepts this payment as full and final settlement of all claims." My hand froze. "This is a release," I said. "If I sign this, I cannot sue you." Dale laughed. A short, nervous sound. "Sue us? Willow? This was an accident. This is just to get you into a hotel fast. We are trying to take care of you. If you go through insurance, you will be waiting weeks for a check. We are offering cash today." "I am not signing this," I said. I handed the clipboard back. Dale's smile didn't waver, but his eyes went flat. "You are refusing assistance?" "I am refusing to sign away my rights for 3 nights at a Marriott," I said. I turned to leave. As I pushed through the glass doors, I saw a man standing near the entrance, watching me. He was wearing a dark windbreaker with Marrowgate Fire, Investigation Unit embroidered on the chest. He was lean, with graying hair and a face that looked like it had been carved out of granite. He was holding a notebook. "Ms. Bryant?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Miles Kessler," he said. "Fire investigator. Do you have a moment?" Yes, I said. He led me away from the building entrance, toward his unmarked sedan. He didn't offer me a tissue or tell me he was sorry. He just opened his notebook. "I need to ask you about the state of your apartment prior to the fire," he said. His voice was calm, exact. It wasn't cold, just focused. "Any recent electrical work? Any problems with outlets sparking?" "No," I said. "No electrical work. Did you have any space heaters running?" "No, the building heat is on." "Candles? Incense?" "No, I have asthma. I do not burn things." He wrote that down. "Any new appliances?" "I bought a toaster 2 months ago. That is it." He nodded, tapping his pen against the paper. "Okay, and the alarms. Did you hear anything inside your unit?" "No," I said, and I hesitated. I looked back at the lobby where Dale Pritchard was watching us through the glass. I just went up there. My smoke detector is missing. Miles Kessler stopped writing. He looked up, his eyes narrowing. Missing? There are just wires, I said. The plastic plate is gone. The unit is gone. It does not look like it burned up. It looks like someone took it down. Miles stared at me for a long second. Then he closed his notebook. The casualness was gone from his posture. He looked alert, like a hunting dog catching a scent. Just wires, he repeated. Yes. Thank you. Ms. Bryant, he said. That is very helpful. Where are you staying? The Motel 6 on Route 16. I might be in touch, he said. He turned and walked straight toward the building entrance, not looking at Dale Pritchard, but looking up at the blackened windows of the third floor. The Motel 6 was a depressing place. The carpet was sticky, and the air conditioner rattled like a lawnmower. I sat on the edge of the bed, eating a vending machine sandwich that tasted like cardboard. It was 10 at night. The adrenaline had worn off, leaving behind a crushing weight of exhaustion. I replayed the phone call with my parents. We're not getting involved. It wasn't just the cruelty of it, it was the speed. My mother hadn't sounded surprised enough. When I told her the apartment was gone, she hadn't gasped. She'd gone straight to the refusal. It felt prepared. It felt like they had discussed the possibility of me calling in a crisis and had already decided on the script. You're an adult. Figure it out. Why? I had never asked them for money before. I had paid for my own college loans. I had gotten this job on my own. Why were they so defensive? I pushed the sandwich away. I needed to do something productive. I couldn't just sit here and feel sorry for myself. I pulled my laptop out of my bag. It was the only valuable thing I had saved besides my passport. It smelled like smoke, but the screen flickered to life. I logged into my email. I needed to find my renter's insurance policy number to send to the claim adjuster. I scrolled through my inbox, junk mail, work emails from Trina, a newsletter, then I saw it, an email from Cedar Ridge Safety Compliance Portal. The subject line was, Confirmation of Tenant Ticket 4099, Hazardous Material Storage. I frowned. I had never submitted a ticket. I clicked it open. Dear resident, this email confirms your self-reported notification regarding the storage of 5 gallons of industrial paint thinner and solvent in your utility closet, Unit 304. As per your request, maintenance will not enter the closet during the upcoming inspection. Date, submitted. November 1st. Status, pending review. I stared at the screen. November 1st. That was 2 days ago. I had never bought paint thinner. I didn't paint. I didn't do crafts. I didn't have a utility closet. I had a small coat closet by the kitchen where I kept my vacuum cleaner and winter coats. Self-reported notification, I whispered. My hands started to shake again, harder this time. Someone had logged into the tenant portal using my account. Someone had filed a record saying I was storing flammable chemicals in my apartment 2 days before the building burned down. This wasn't an accident, and it wasn't just a fire. They were building a story, and I was the villain. I looked at the date again. November 1st. I closed the laptop, my heart hammering against my ribs. I looked at the dark window of the motel room, seeing my own reflection. I looked small. I looked scared. But for the first time since I woke up to the smell of burning plastic, I didn't just feel fear, I felt anger. I picked up my phone and looked at the contact for Miles Kessler, the fire investigator, which he had written on a card and handed to me. I didn't call him yet. I didn't trust anyone yet, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to sign that release, and I wasn't going to let them say this was my fault. Not my problem, my mother had said. I looked at the fake email again. Oh, it is definitely your problem, I whispered to the empty room. You just do not know it yet. The office of the Marrowgate Fire Investigation Unit smelled like stale coffee and toner cartridge dust. It was a windowless room in the basement of the municipal center, lined with metal filing cabinets that looked like they had been there since the 70s. I sat on a hard plastic chair, my hands clasped tightly in my lap to stop them from shaking. Miles Kessler sat across from me at a steel desk cluttered with maps and burnt debris sealed in plastic bags. He looked different in the fluorescent light than he had outside the burning building. He looked tired, but his eyes were sharp, scanning a computer monitor that was angled away from me. "Ms. Bryant," he said. His voice was gravelly, devoid of the fake sympathy everyone else had been offering me for the last 24 hours. "I asked you to come in because I need to clarify the timeline of the night of the 3rd. "I told you everything," I said. "I woke up. I smelled smoke. I ran." "I know," Miles said. He turned the monitor slightly so I could see it. It displayed a grid of timelines, colored bars stretching across a black background. "This is the data log from the Cedar Ridge Building Automation System. It monitors the HVAC, the secure access doors, and the fire panel." He pointed a pen at a red bar. "The first 911 call came in at 3:14 in the morning," he said. "That matches your call log. But look here." He tapped a gray bar that ended abruptly at 3:04. "This is the feed for the 3rd-floor stairwell camera, the one right outside the fire door at the end of your hallway. It went offline at 3:04 exactly, 10 minutes before you woke up." I stared at the screen. "Maybe the fire burned the wires?" "Maybe," Miles said. "But the fire started near the center of the corridor, not the stairwell. The heat would not have reached that camera for another 15 minutes. It did not burn out. Ms. Bryant, it was unplugged, or cut." A chill that had nothing to do with the basement air conditioning went down my spine. "And this," Miles continued, moving his pen to a yellow line. "This is the fire alarm control panel. At 3:08, the system registered a trouble signal on the 3rd-floor loop. That usually means a sensor has been tampered with or removed. Do you know what happens when a trouble signal goes off?" "The alarm sounds," I guessed. "No," Miles said. "The panel in the maintenance room beeps. It is a warning to the building manager that something is wrong with the equipment. It is not an evacuation signal. It just beeps until someone acknowledges it." He looked at me, his expression grim. At 3:09, 1 minute later, that trouble signal was cleared manually. Someone was standing at the panel in the basement. They saw the warning that a detector on the 3rd floor had been compromised, and they pressed the reset button to silence it. I felt the blood drain from my face. "Someone was there?" "Someone was in the basement," Miles confirmed. "And while they were resetting the panel, the smoke was filling your hallway. The system did not go into full alarm because the loop had been disabled. That is why you did not hear anything until the fire was already through the door." I sat back, feeling sick. "So it was not an accident." Miles leaned back in his chair. "I deal in physics and chemistry. Ms. Bryant, accidents happen, wires fray, toasters short out, but cameras do not unplug themselves, and alarm panels do not reset themselves. I am not ruling anything out yet, but I need you to think. Is there anyone who would want to hurt you? Specifically you?" I thought of my quiet life. I went to work at Ketter and Rowe. I watched documentaries. I paid my bills. "No," I said. "I am boring. I do not have enemies." "Everyone has enemies," Miles said softly. "Sometimes we just do not know their names yet." An hour later, I was walking into the glass-walled lobby of Northlake Mutual Insurance. I had spent the morning trying to list every item I had owned on a yellow legal pad. And the total was pathetic. How did you put a price on a grandmother's quilt? How did you value a laptop full of photos? I was directed to a cubicle in the back where a man named Evan Durnell was waiting. He was young, with a smile that showed too many teeth and a tie that matched the corporate logo perfectly. "Willow," he said, standing up to shake my hand. His grip was moist. "Please, sit down. I am so sorry about your loss. Northlake is here to support you." "Thank you," I said. "I just need to know how to get the emergency funds for temporary housing. The motel it is not sustainable." Evan typed something on his keyboard, frowning slightly. "Right, the loss of use coverage. We can certainly look at that. I see the claim has been opened. I just have a few routine questions to clear up the liability side first." "Liability?" I asked. "I have renter's insurance. It covers my things." "Of course. Evan said smoothly. But we have to determine the cause of loss. If the fire originated from tenant negligence, it can complicate the payout structure. Sometimes it limits the coverage to liability only, rather than personal property replacement. He looked at me over the rim of his glasses. Did you have any candles burning that night? Willow? Maybe a scented candle in the bathroom you forgot to blow out? No, I said firmly. I told the fire investigator I do not use candles. Space heaters? Evan asked. It was a cold night. Maybe a small ceramic heater under your desk? No. Are you a smoker? No, Evan sighed, as if my answers were disappointing him. Okay, it is just that we have a preliminary note here from the property management company suggesting there might have been some combustible clutter in the unit. Excessive paper? Craft supplies? Chemicals? My stomach dropped. The fake email. That is a lie, I said, my voice rising. I am neat. I do not store chemicals. Who told you that? It is just a note in the file, Evan said, holding up a hand to calm me. We are investigating. But you have to understand, Willow, if the investigation finds that the fire was caused by hazardous materials stored in your apartment, Northlake might have to deny the claim based on a violation of the policy terms. We do not cover illegal or hazardous acts. I did not do this, I said. I felt the tears pricking my eyes again, hot and humiliating. I lost everything. I am sleeping in a Motel 6. I know, Evan said. He slid a box of tissues across the desk. Let's just wait for the official report. In the meantime, I can authorize a small advance, $200, for food. $200. That wouldn't even cover 3 nights at the motel. Thank you, I said. Standing up, I didn't take a tissue. I didn't want anything from him. When I got back to the motel, there was a woman sitting on the curb outside my room. She was wearing a faded hoodie and smoking a cigarette with shaking hands. It was Mara Sloan, my neighbor from across the hall in Unit 305. Mara was 22, a bartender who worked double shifts and always paid her rent late. We had only spoken a few times in the hallway, usually just a polite nod. Mara? I asked. She jumped, dropping her cigarette. Hey, Willow, I saw your car. I need to talk to you, but you cannot tell anyone I talked to you. Okay, I said. Do you want to come inside? No, she said quickly. She looked around the parking lot. Out here is better. I do not want to be trapped in a room. She hugged her knees to her chest. Her face was gray with fatigue. I lied to the fire guys, she whispered. What do you mean? I asked, crouching down next to her. They asked if I saw anything. I said no. I said I was asleep. She took a shaky breath. But I wasn't asleep. I came home from my shift at 2:30. I was watching TV. Did you see something? I heard someone in the hall, Mara said. Heavy boots. Not like a resident. Residents try to be quiet at that hour. This guy was walking loud, like he owned the place. Did you see him? I looked through the peephole, she said. It was dark. I just saw a shape. A big guy. He was doing something near your door. I thought maybe you were having a fight with a boyfriend or something. Then I heard a sound like a spray can. I froze. A spray can? Yeah, and then I smelled it. It came right under my door. It smelled sweet. Like that stuff you put on a charcoal grill. Lighter fluid. Mara, I said, grabbing her arm. You have to tell the investigator. You have to tell Miles Kessler. I cannot, she said, her eyes filling with tears. I am 2 months behind on rent. Willow, Dale Pritchard told me if I cause any trouble, he will evict me and garnish my wages. He knows I am broke. He said if I just keep my head down, he might forgive the back rent since the building is messed up. He is buying you off, I said. Mara, he is paying you to be quiet. I have nowhere else to go, she sobbed. I cannot be homeless. I saw what happened to you. You are stuck in this dump. I cannot handle that. She stood up, wiping her face on her sleeve. I just wanted you to know, Someone was there. It wasn't your fault. They keep saying it was your fault, but it wasn't. She turned and ran toward the bus stop at the edge of the parking lot. I watched her go, the smell of lighter fluid ghosting in my memory, mixing with the smell of the motel's asphalt. I needed my parents. I knew, logically, that they had already turned me away. I knew their love was conditional, based on a set of rules I had never fully understood, but the fear was eating a hole in my stomach. I was being framed. I was alone. I just wanted to hear my father's voice tell me he would fix it. I sat on the edge of the bed and dialed the landline at the house in Larkhill Heights. Gordon Bryant answered on the second ring. "Hello?" "Dad," I said. "It is Willow." "Willow," he said. His voice was not warm. It was tight, like a rubber band stretched to the breaking point. "Your mother is resting. She has a migraine. The stress of this whole situation is very hard on her." "The stress on her?" I asked, incredulous. "Dad, I am at a motel. The insurance company is trying to deny my claim. The fire investigator found evidence that the alarms were tampered with." There was silence on the line, a heavy, loaded silence. "Tampered with?" Gordon said finally. "That sounds ridiculous." "It is not ridiculous. The camera was unplugged. Dad, someone did this on purpose, and now the insurance guy is asking me if I store chemicals. Someone is trying to blame me." "Willow," Gordon snapped. "Stop it." "Stop what?" "Stop making accusations," he said. His voice rose, harsh and barking. "You always do this. You get hysterical, and you start pointing fingers. You are going to get yourself sued for slander if you go around talking about tampering and frames. Just accept that accidents happen and move on." "I am not making it up," I cried. "Why are you angry at me?" "I am the victim here." "You are only a victim if you act like one," he said. "We raised you to be dignified. Running around screaming about conspiracies is not dignified. It is embarrassing. Do not call us again until you are calm." Click. I stared at the phone. "Stop making accusations before you even accuse anyone." He hadn't asked who I suspected. He hadn't asked what the investigator found. He had just shut me down. He was scared. My father, the man who never showed fear, sounded terrified. I couldn't stay in the motel room. The walls were closing in. I needed to do something active. I drove to the temporary leasing trailer Hallowbrook Property Group had set up in the parking lot of a sister property down the street. I needed to ask about the email. Dale Pritchard wasn't there. A young woman with bright pink nails was manning the desk. "Can I help you?" she asked, looking bored. "I am Willow Bryant, from Cedar Ridge. I need to know why my tenant portal password was reset on November 1st. She sighed and typed on her computer. "Bryant, Unit 304. Yeah, password reset, system maintenance." "I did not request it," I said. "Can you see what email address the reset link was sent to?" "It goes to the email on file," she said automatically. "Check the log," I insisted. "Please." She rolled her eyes and clicked a few more times. "Okay, looks like the contact info was updated right before the reset. The recovery email was changed to adminarborlight.com, and the phone number ending in 5599. "That is not my email," I said. "And that is not my number." "Well, it was changed back yesterday," she said, shrugging. "Probably just a glitch. The system is old." "Who is Arborlight?" I asked. "I do not know," she said. "Maybe an IT vendor? Look, are you done? I have a showing in 10 minutes. I walked out of the trailer, my heart racing. Arborlight. It sounded like a company name. My phone buzzed in my hand. It was a text from Serena Holt. Serena and I had been best friends since 3rd grade. She was the opposite of me. Loud, messy, artistic, and fiercely loyal. She lived in a tiny, chaotic house in Birchline, a town 20 minutes away. "I heard about the fire. I'm coming to get you. Pack your stuff. Do not argue." I stared at the screen. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say I was fine. I didn't want to be the charity case sleeping on her couch. My parents' voice echoed in my head. "Don't be a burden. Don't impose. but then I looked at the Motel 6 behind me. I looked at the gray sky. Okay. I typed back, "Thank you." Serena's house was a sanctuary of clutter. There were half-finished paintings on the walls, stacks of books on the stairs, and a cat named Barnaby who immediately rubbed his face against my soot-stained jeans. "The guest room is small," Serena said, dropping my single bag of salvaged items onto the bed. "But the sheets are clean, and it does not smell like smoke." "Serena, I cannot pay you rent yet," I said, standing in the doorway. I felt awkward, like my skin didn't fit right. "I do not know when the insurance money is coming." "Shut up," Serena said. She turned and grabbed my shoulders. "You are not paying rent. You are staying here until you are back on your feet. That is what people do. Willow, they help each other." "I feel like a leech," I whispered. "You are not a leech," she said fiercely. "You are my best friend, and your house burned down. If the roles were reversed, would you leave me in a motel?" "No," I said. "Exactly. So sit down. I made lasagna. It is burnt on the edges, which I realize is maybe insensitive given the circumstances, but it is hot." I laughed. It was a weak, watery sound, but it was a laugh. "Thank you," I said. "We are going to fix this," Serena said. "I do not care what your parents say. We are going to fix it." The next day, Miles Kessler called me. "I am at the building," he said. "I need you to see something. Can you come by?" "I am in Birchline," I said. "I will be there in 30 minutes. When I arrived, Miles was wearing a hard hat and carrying a high-powered flashlight. He handed me a spare helmet. "We are going up," he said. The staircase was dark and smelled of wet rot. We climbed to the 3rd floor. The hallway was a tunnel of black char. The floor crunched under my boots. We stopped outside the door to my apartment, or what was left of it. "Look at the jam," Miles said, shining the light on the wood frame of my door. I leaned in. The wood was blackened, but I could see deep gouges in the metal strike plate. They were shiny and silver, cutting through the soot. "Pry marks," Miles said. "Fresh. Someone forced this door open, and they did it carefully enough that the wood didn't splinter outward. They used a tool." He led me inside. The apartment was a shell. He pointed his light at the small closet near the kitchen, the one Evan Durnell had called a utility closet. "The door to this closet was open during the fire," Miles said. "See the burn pattern on the inside? But look at the latch." He shone the light on the closet latch. It was twisted metal. "Forced," he said. "Someone broke into your apartment, and then they broke into this closet. Why?" "There was nothing in there," I said. "Just a vacuum and coats." "Or," Miles said, "they wanted to make it look like there was something in there. They staged it." He walked back out to the hallway and pointed the beam at the wall opposite my apartment door. The drywall was gone, revealing the metal studs and wires inside. "This is the electrical chase," he said. "It runs from the basement to the roof. The fire burned hottest here. The V pattern points right to this bundle of cables." He looked at me. "The fire did not start in your apartment, Willow. It started in the wall of the hallway. It burned into your unit. The narrative that you left a candle burning or stored chemicals. It is physically impossible based on these burn patterns." "So I am cleared?" I asked, hope surging in my chest. "Scientifically? Yes," Miles said. "But legally? That is a different game. Someone went to a lot of trouble to plant that fake ticket and break into your closet. They are not going to give up just because of a few burn patterns." He was right. When I got back to Serena's house that evening, there was a certified letter waiting for me. Serena had signed for it. "It is from Hallowbrook," she said, handing me the thick envelope. "Do you want me to open it?" "No," I said. "I will do it." I tore open the flap. Notice of liability and demand for payment. Dear Miss Bryant, our preliminary investigation indicates that the fire at Cedar Ridge Flats on November 3rd was the direct result of your violation of the lease agreement, specifically Section 14 regarding the storage of hazardous materials. Attached is a copy of your self-reported maintenance ticket dated November 1st. Admitting to the storage of industrial solvents, Hallowbrook Property Group holds you fully liable for the damages to the structure and loss of rental income. We intend to pursue recovery of these costs. Estimated at $2.5 million. Please contact our legal department immediately. I dropped the letter on the kitchen table. My hands were trembling so hard I couldn't breathe. $2.5 million. They weren't just denying my claim. They were trying to destroy me. I looked at the attachment. It was a printout of the fake email. At the bottom, where a signature should be, it just said /S/Willow Bryant in a generic typed font. They are framing me, I said. They are actually doing it. Okay, Serena said. Her face was pale. We need a lawyer, a real one, not a billboard guy. Janelle Cross worked out of a storefront office in downtown Marrowgate that used to be a bakery. The sign on the window said, Crossvale Legal Aid. Inside, it was stacked floor to ceiling with file boxes. Janelle was a small woman with hair pulled back in tight braids and glasses that slid down her nose. She read the letter from Hallowbrook without blinking. Standard intimidation, she said, tossing the letter onto her desk. They know their insurance won't pay out if it is determined to be structural negligence or arson, so they need a scapegoat. You are the scapegoat. They want $2 million, I said. I have $300 in my bank account. They do not want your money, Janelle said. You do not have any. They want a judgment against you so they can show their insurance company. Look, it was the tenant. Pay us so we can rebuild. She leaned forward. Did you sign the release they offered you? No, I said. Good. That was the first test. If you had signed that, you would have admitted fault by default. She pulled a yellow legal pad toward her. Here is the new rule. Willow, you do not talk to Northlake Mutual. You do not talk to Hallowbrook. You do not talk to Dale Pritchard. You direct everything to me. Can we win? I asked. We have truth, Janelle said. But they have money. It is going to be a street fight. You need to be ready. They are going to dig into your past. They are going to try to make you look unstable, reckless, or desperate. My parents, I started, then stopped. What about them? They told me not to make accusations. My father seemed to know they were going to come after me. Janelle wrote something down. Family complicates things, but right now, you need to decide whose side you are on. Are you the dutiful daughter protecting your parents' reputation, or are you the woman who is going to burn this frame up to the ground? I thought about the heat of the doorknob. I thought about the missing smoke detector. I thought about Celeste's flat voice saying, "Not our problem." I want to burn it down, I said. That night, in Serena's guest room, I couldn't sleep. I lay in the dark, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the house. I thought about my life before the fire. I had always been the peacemaker, the quiet one. When my parents criticized my clothes, I changed. When they made subtle digs about my job, I apologized. I had spent 33 years shrinking myself to fit into the small box they had built for me. And what had it gotten me? It had made me an easy target. Gordon and Celeste knew I wouldn't fight back. They knew I would crumble under pressure. That was why they were so confident. That was why Hallowbrook picked me. I was the path of least resistance. I sat up in bed. No, I whispered. I imagined the conversation with my father. I imagined him yelling, "Stop making accusations." In my head, I practiced the response. I imagined my voice steady, my spine straight. I am not making accusations. Dad, I am stating facts. And if you are standing in the way of the facts, you are going to get run over. I said it out loud to the empty room. You are going to get run over. It felt strange. It felt dangerous. But for the first time in my life, it also felt true. The photo on the monitor was high resolution, grainy only in the shadows where the flash hadn't quite reached. It showed the ceiling of my apartment hallway, or what was left of it. The drywall was blistered and black, peeling away like dead skin to reveal the charred ribs of the lath underneath. Miles Kessler pointed a pen at the center of the image. "This was taken by the first sweep team," he said, "about 2 hours after the fire was suppressed. Look at the screw holes." I squinted. In the center of a lighter, circular patch of soot. The ghost, where the smoke detector had once been. There were 2 small holes for the mounting screws. "They are clean," Miles said. I looked at him, not understanding. Clean? If the detector had been ripped down by the force of a fire hose, the drywall would be torn. The screws would have dragged through the plaster. These holes are perfect circles. The screws were backed out. He clicked to the next photo. This one showed the floor directly beneath that spot. It was a mess of sodden insulation and ash. "We sifted this entire section," Miles said. His voice was quiet, the sound of a man who was angry but keeping it contained in a box. "We found the metal bracket for the light fixture. We found the hinges from the bathroom door. We found coins from a jar on your dresser. Do you know what we did not find?" "The detector," I whispered. "Not a trace," Miles said. "Plastic melts. Willow. It does not vanish. If it had been there, we would have found a puddle of polymer or the radioactive isotope chip from the sensor. It is not there because it was not in the room when the fire started." He leaned back, the leather of his chair creaking. "Someone entered your apartment, got a ladder or a chair, unscrewed the detector, disconnected the wires, and took it with them. This was not negligence, it was preparation." I felt the blood drain from my face, leaving my hands cold. "Who?" "That is the question," Miles said. "Who had a key?" The answer, according to Hallowbrook Property Group, was nobody. Janelle Cross sat behind her desk in the bakery, turned law office, surrounded by stacks of paper that smelled like vanilla and dust. She had forced Hallowbrook to release the maintenance logs for the last 90 days, threatening them with a subpoena if they dragged their feet. They had sent over a disorganized PDF file that looked like it had been scanned in a hurry. "Here," Janelle said, sliding a printout across the desk. "Look at October 20th. I ran my finger down the list of dates. October 20th was 2 weeks before the fire. Unit 304, routine inspection, filter change and sensor check, Tech, DP. "I did not request an inspection," I said, "and I was at work. Tech DSP," Janelle read. "Dale Pritchard, the property manager himself doing a filter change? That seems below his pay grade, doesn't it?" I closed my eyes, trying to access the memory of that week. The days blurred together, work, groceries, sleep, but then a small fragment surfaced. I was coming home from work early on a Tuesday. I had a migraine. As I walked up the stairs to the 3rd floor, I saw a man coming out of the utility room at the end of the hall. He wasn't wearing the usual dark green Hallowbrook maintenance uniform. He was wearing tan coveralls and a plain baseball cap. He had nodded to me, keeping his head down, and walked past me toward the stairwell. I hadn't thought twice about it. In a building with 50 units, you see workmen all the time. You learn to ignore them. They are part of the background, like the mailboxes or the carpet pattern. "I saw someone," I said slowly. "Not Dale. A guy in tan coveralls. I thought he was fixing the boiler." "Did he have a toolbox?" Janelle asked. "He had a bag," I said. "A canvas bag, big enough for a smoke detector." I felt a wave of nausea. I had walked right past him. I had probably smiled. I had let a stranger walk away with my safety in a canvas bag because I was too polite to ask who he was. "That access was weaponized," Janelle said, her voice hard. "They count on tenants not paying attention. They count on you assuming that if someone has a key, they are supposed to be there." She circled the entry on the log with a red marker. "We need to prove Dale Pritchard falsified this log, if he claims he was there, but you saw someone else, or if he claims he checked the sensor and it was working, he is lying, and if he lied on a federal safety log, he is done." The threat didn't come with shouting. It didn't come with dramatic music. It came while I was folding laundry in Serena's guest room, trying to get the smell of smoke out of the 3 shirts I had left. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Unknown caller. I picked it up. expecting it to be Evan Durnell from the insurance company again, calling to harass me about candle wax. "Hello? Ms. Bryant?" The voice was male, deep, and incredibly calm. It sounded like a recording, but the cadence was too responsive. "Who is this?" I asked. "You have a very generous offer on the table from Hallowbrook," the man said. "The hotel voucher, the refund, it is a clean break." "Who is this?" I repeated, my grip tightening on the phone. "Litigation is expensive," the voice went on, "and it is public. Things come out in court that people prefer to keep private. Histories, family matters." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Are you threatening me?" "I am advising you," he said. "Take the hotel deal. Stop pushing for logs. Stop talking to the fire investigator. It is over. Let it be over." "I am not signing anything," I said, my voice shaking but loud. "That is a mistake," he said. "Enjoy your evening. Willow?" The line went dead. I stood there, holding the phone away from my ear as if it were a poisonous snake. He hadn't yelled. He hadn't used profanity. He sounded like a banker discussing a loan rate. That was what terrified me. It was the confidence of someone who knew exactly where I was and exactly how small I was compared to them. "Serena!" I called out. Serena came running up the stairs, a paintbrush in her hand. "What? What is it?" "Someone just called me," I said. "They told me to stop pushing." Serena's face went grim. She took the phone from my hand and looked at the screen. "No caller ID," she muttered. "Of course." She looked at me, her eyes fierce. "They are scared. Willow, you do not make phone calls like that if you are winning. You make them when you are trying to plug a leak." Miles Kessler did not look like a man who was scared. When I met him the next morning at the coffee shop near the station, he looked like a man who had found the loose thread and was ready to pull until the whole sweater unraveled. "I re-interviewed Dale Pritchard," Miles said, blowing on his black coffee. "I asked him about the keys." "The maintenance log said he was in my unit," I said. "But Janelle thinks he faked it." "He claims there are only 2 master keys for the building," Miles said. "One on his ring, one in the lockbox for the fire department. He swore up and down that no other copies existed." Miles reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a photocopy of a receipt. He slid it across the table. It was from a locksmith shop on 4th Street. Marrowgate Key Safe, invoice 9902. Customer, Hallowbrook Property Group. Item, do not duplicate master key, SC1 keyway. Quantity, 3. The date was October 15th, 5 days before the inspection. 2 weeks before the fire. 3 copies, I said. He lied. He lied to a fire official during an active investigation, Miles said. That is a felony, but it gets more interesting. I went to the locksmith. The guy remembered the order because it was a rush job. He said the person who picked them up wasn't Dale. Who was it? He didn't get a name, Miles said. But he described him, older gentleman, well-dressed, drove a silver luxury sedan, said he was an investor. I felt a cold prickle on the back of my neck. A silver luxury sedan. My father drives a silver Lexus, I said. My voice sounded hollow. Miles looked at me, his expression unreadable. A lot of people drive silver cars. Willow, do not jump to conclusions yet. He is an investor, I said. He manages portfolios. He dresses well. We need more than a car description, Miles said. But now we know there are 3 unaccounted for keys floating around. One of them likely opened your door the night of the fire. One of them likely opened the alarm panel room. He tapped the receipt. Dale is protecting someone, or he is scared of someone. Either way, the circle is getting smaller. I needed to go to work. I needed the normalcy of it. I needed to sit at my desk and process invoices and pretend that my life wasn't turning into a crime novel. But when I walked into Ketter and Rowe, the atmosphere was wrong. The receptionist wouldn't meet my eye. The office was quiet. Trina Madsen was waiting for me. Willow, she said, her voice dripping with that fake nursery school sweetness. Can we chat in my office for a sec? I followed her. She closed the door and gestured for me to sit. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "I am fine," I said. "I am ready to work. I have the quarterly reports ready to go." "Right," Trina said. She picked up a stress ball from her desk and squeezed it. "Here is the thing. We have had a few comments from clients." "Comments?" "You know, about your focus," Trina said. "And the police involvement. It seems the fire investigation is becoming a bit public. And with you being in finance, handling sensitive billing, appearance is everything. I have not missed a single deadline," I said. "And I am the victim of a crime, Trina." I know, she soothed. "But the partners feel that maybe you need some time to really focus on your healing and your legal situation." She slid a paper across the desk. "Leave of absence request form." "It is unpaid," Trina said, her voice dropping to a whisper, as if she were sharing a secret. "But we will hold your position for 30 days. It is really the best thing for you right now. Take the time. Get your life sorted." I looked at the form. It wasn't a request. It was an order. "You are suspending me," I said. "We are supporting you," Trina corrected. "We just cannot have the drama bleeding into the workplace. It makes people uncomfortable." Uncomfortable. My apartment had burned down. I was being threatened. I was homeless. And their biggest concern was that my tragedy was making the billing department uncomfortable. "If I sign this," I said, "I have no income." "You have insurance, right?" Trina said brightly. "And your parents? I am sure they are helping." The mention of my parents felt like a slap. Everyone assumed that because I came from Larkhill Heights, I had a safety net. They used my background to justify not helping me, not knowing that the net had been cut years ago. "I will sign it," I said, standing up. "But do not call it kindness, Trina. Call it what it is. You are checking a liability box." I signed the paper, left my badge on the desk, and walked out. I didn't say goodbye to anyone. I drove straight to Larkhill Heights. I didn't have a plan. I just had a burning, white-hot coal of rage in my chest that needed somewhere to go. The drive took 20 minutes. The scenery changed from the grimy brick of Marrowgate to the rolling green lawns and wrought iron gates of the suburbs. My parents' house was a sprawling colonial at the end of a cul-de-sac. The grass was perfectly edged. The windows gleamed. It looked so safe. It looked like a fortress against the chaos of the world. And I was on the outside. I parked my car, a dented Honda that looked like trash in this driveway, and walked to the front door. I didn't knock. I rang the bell. Celeste opened the door. She was wearing a cream-colored cashmere sweater and holding a glass of iced tea. She looked perfect. She looked untouched. When she saw me, her smile vanished. She didn't open the door wider. She stepped into the gap, blocking the entrance. "Willow," she said, "we weren't expecting you." "I need to talk to Dad," I said. "He is on a call," she said. "It is not a good time. I lost my job," I said. "Or I was forced on leave because of the fire." "Oh, Willow," Celeste sighed. She took a sip of her tea. "I told you that job was too high stress for you. Maybe this is a sign." "A sign?" I stared at her. "Mom, I have no money. I am living with Serena. Someone is threatening me." "Lowering your voice, please," Celeste said, glancing at the neighbor's house. "You are always so dramatic. Threatening you? Honestly, Willow, you sound paranoid. Just like when you were a teenager and thought everyone was talking about you." "They are talking about me," I said, my voice rising. "Someone planted evidence in my apartment. Someone cut keys." "Stop it," she hissed. "You are overreacting. You always overreact. You create chaos, and then you expect us to clean it up. We are not doing it this time." "I am not asking you to clean it up," I said. "I am asking you to care." "We care," she said coldly. "We care about dignity, and you are showing none." She started to close the door. "Go back to your friend's house. Calm down. We will talk when you are rational." She pushed the heavy oak door shut. It clicked. I stood there on the porch, staring at the wood grain. I was 33 years old, and I had just been dismissed like a solicitor. I turned to leave, but then I heard a voice. The living room window was to the right of the porch. It was cracked open a few inches to let in the autumn breeze. I heard my father's voice. I froze. I shouldn't listen. It was rude. It was undignified. I stepped closer to the window, pressing my back against the brick. "No, Dale is panicking," Gordon was saying. His voice was muffled but audible. I told him to sit tight. Pause. "I know she has a lawyer. It is some legal aid nonsense. They do not have the budget for a long discovery." Pause. "No. The investigator is the problem. Kessler. He won't drop it. He is digging into the vendor list." My breath caught in my throat. Pritchard. Kessler. My father wasn't just aware of the situation. He was managing it. He was talking about Dale Pritchard by his first name. He knew about the investigator. "We just need to hold the line until the trust amendment is ratified," Gordon said. "If she is declared liable, the clause triggers automatically. We protect the principal." "Yes. Okay. I will handle the premium." I backed away from the window, my shoes silent on the pavement. I felt like the ground had opened up and swallowed me. It wasn't just that they didn't care. They were involved. My father knew Dale Pritchard. My father was worried about Miles Kessler. My father was talking about protecting the principal. I walked back to my car. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry. I drove away from the beautiful house with the manicured lawn, and as I watched it disappear in the rearview mirror, I realized that I had never really lived there. I had just been a guest who overstayed her welcome. I went straight to Janelle's office. "My father knows Dale Pritchard," I said, walking through the door before she could even look up. "I heard him on the phone." Janelle took off her glasses. "What exactly did he say?" "He said Dale is panicking. He said the investigator won't drop it, and he said something about a trust amendment, protecting the principal." Janelle's eyes widened. She stood up and went to a filing cabinet in the corner. She pulled out a thick folder. "I was going to show you this tomorrow," she said. "I finally got a hit on the asset search. It turns out you are a beneficiary of a trust." "I am?" I asked. "My parents never told me." "The Bryant Family Stability Trust," Janelle read. "Established 10 years ago. It holds mostly real estate assets and bonds. You are listed as a secondary beneficiary." She flipped to the last page. "But look at this. An amendment was filed on October 1st. 1 month ago." She pointed to a paragraph of dense legal text. Section 4. 2. Disqualification of beneficiary. In the event that any beneficiary is found to be financially reckless, legally combative against the trust's interests, or liable for damages exceeding $50,000, their interest in the trust shall be immediately forfeited and returned to the principal. "Legally combative," I repeated. "What does that mean?" "It is a poison pill," Janelle said. "It means if you sue anyone connected to the trust's assets, you lose your inheritance, and if you are found liable for the fire, which would be damages exceeding $50,000, you lose your inheritance." "Connected to the trust's assets?" I asked. "But the fire was at Cedar Ridge. That is owned by Hallowbrook." Janelle looked at me, her expression soft, pitiful. "Willow," she said, "who do you think owns Hallowbrook Property Group?" I stared at her, the world tilted on its axis. "Hallowbrook is a shell company," Janelle said. "The majority shareholder is the Bryant Family Stability Trust." I sat down hard in the client chair. My parents owned the building. They didn't just know the landlord. They were the landlord. The refusal to help. The "not our problem." The pressure to sign the release. The fake maintenance ticket. It was all them. They were trying to frame me for burning down their own building because if it was my fault, the insurance would pay out to them, and I would be cut out of the trust for being liable. They would get the insurance money to rebuild, and they would keep my share of the inheritance. It was efficient, it was profitable, and it was monstrous. "They did this," I whispered. "My own parents. They are protecting the asset," Janelle said. "To people like that, Money is the only bloodline that matters. She leaned across the desk. This changes everything. Willow, we aren't just fighting a property manager. We are fighting your family. And now that we know the motive, they are going to come at you harder. They have to. I looked down at my hands. They were still stained with the faint gray of soot that never seemed to wash off. For the last 3 days, I had felt like a victim. I had felt like a little girl lost in the woods, waiting for someone to save me. I had wanted my mommy and daddy to make it better, but my mommy and daddy were the ones holding the matches. Something inside me clicked. It was the sound of a lock engaging, the fear that had been paralyzing me, the fear of being a burden, of being ungrateful, of being undignified, evaporated. It was replaced by a cold, hard clarity. They thought I was weak. They thought I would fade away. Take the hotel voucher and apologize for the inconvenience. They thought they could erase me. I looked up at Janelle. "Let them come," I said. Janelle smiled. It was a sharp, dangerous smile. "That is what I wanted to hear." I picked up the trust document. "My father said the investigator won't drop it," I said. "He is right. He won't, and neither will I." I stood up. "Janelle, I want to depose my father. I want to put him under oath." "We will get there," Janelle said. "But first, we need to survive the next 48 hours, because once they realize you know, the polite warnings are going to stop." "Good," I said. "I am tired of polite." The office of the Marrowgate Fire Investigation Unit was becoming a second home to me, a place of gray walls and cold facts that felt safer than the manicured streets of Larkhill Heights. Miles Kessler placed a single sheet of paper on the metal desk between us. It was a printout from the alarm system's service log, retrieved from the cloud backup that Hallowbrook Property Group hadn't managed to delete. "Look at the date," Miles said. I leaned in. November 2nd, 8:15 in the morning. "That is the day before the fire," I said. "Correct," Miles said. "A service ticket was opened for Zone 3 sensitivity adjustment. That is the zone for your hallway. The ticket claims the smoke detectors were too sensitive and needed recalibration to prevent false alarms." He pointed to the vendor name listed in the column next to the timestamp. Arbor Light Systems. I felt a jolt of recognition. "That is the name," I said, my voice dropping. When my tenant portal password was reset, the recovery email was changed to an admin address at Arbor Light. I saw it on the screen at the leasing trailer. "I know," Miles said. "I ran a check on them. Arbor Light Systems does not exist." He sat back, crossing his arms over his chest. "There is no business license, no physical address. The phone number listed on the invoice routes to a voice-over IP line that is currently disconnected. It is a ghost vendor. Willow, someone created a shell entity to authorize tampering with the alarm system 24 hours before the fire." "So they could turn down the sensitivity?" I asked. "Or turn it off completely," Miles corrected. "If you lower the sensitivity threshold enough, you can have a bonfire in the hallway and the sensor will just think it is a humid day. That is why the alarm didn't sound until the heat triggered the thermal backup, by which time the fire was already out of control." He looked at me, his eyes hard. This was not a malfunction. This was an engineered failure. Someone logged in, using a fake vendor profile, and blinded the building's nervous system. I stared at the name Arbor Light. It sounded pleasant. Trees and sunshine. It was a sick joke. "Who has admin access to add a vendor?" I asked. "Building management," Miles said. "And the owners?" The word hung in the air. "Owners, my parents, the trust." "I need to prove who was behind the keyboard," Miles said. "But we are getting close." Later that afternoon, I met Mara Sloan at a diner on the edge of town. She looked better than the last time I had seen her, though she was still wearing a coat that was too thin for the November wind. I slid a cup of coffee toward her. "Drink," I said. "It is hot." Mara wrapped her hands around the mug. "You said you could help me," she said, her eyes darting around the room. "With the eviction threats." "I can," I said. "My lawyer, Janelle Cross, she handles tenant rights. She can stop Dale Pritchard from bullying you. But you have to tell the truth. Mara, you have to put it on paper." Mara stared into her coffee. "I am scared of him. Dale looks like a used car salesman. But he has mean eyes." "He is scared too," I said. "He is scared because he knows we are watching him. What did you see?" "Mara, really?" She took a deep breath. "It was late," she said. "Maybe 2 a.m. I told you I heard boots. I looked out the peephole. It was Dale." "You are sure?" "I know his bald spot," she said. "He was wearing a hoodie, but the hood was down. He was carrying a red toolbox, the metal kind." "What was he doing?" "He was kneeling in front of your door," Mara whispered. "I thought he was leaving a notice or something, but then I heard metal on metal, like a screwdriver, and then the door opened. I felt the blood leave my face." "He went inside?" "Just for a second," Mara said. "He went in, and then he came out maybe 30 seconds later. He had something in his hand, something white and round." "The smoke detector." "And the toolbox?" I asked. "He left it in the hall for a minute while he went to the utility closet at the end of the hall. That is when I heard the spraying sound, the lighter fluid smell. Then he came back, grabbed the box, and ran down the stairs." "Why didn't you call 911?" I asked gently. "Because I thought he was poisoning roaches or something," Mara said, her voice trembling. "And because I owe $3,000 in back rent. I thought if I saw him doing something sketchy, I could use it to get him off my back. I didn't know the place was going to burn down an hour later." She looked up at me, tears spilling over. "I am sorry, Willow. I should have called." I reached across the table and covered her hand with mine. "It is okay," I said. "You are telling me now. That is what matters." "Will your lawyer help me?" she asked. "Really?" "Yes," I said. "We are going to protect you. You are not alone in this fight anymore." It wasn't a transaction. I wasn't just buying her testimony, looking at Mara, terrified and broke. I realized that my parents, my family, had done this to her too. They had endangered her life just as much as mine, all to clear a balance sheet. "We are going to nail them," I said. The letter from Northlake Mutual arrived at Serena's house via certified mail. I signed for it with a heavy hand. It was titled, "Reservation of Rights." I sat on the couch and read it. The language was dense, filled with statutes and exclusions, but the message was clear. Please be advised that Northlake Mutual reserves the right to deny coverage for claim 88,920 based on preliminary findings suggesting intentional acts by the insured or gross negligence regarding the storage of hazardous combustibles. They were preparing to deny the claim. They were going to say, "I burned my own apartment." My phone rang. It was Evan Durnell. "Willow," he said, his voice brisk. "I see you got our letter. Standard procedure. Do not be alarmed. However, given the complexities, we need to schedule a recorded statement. I have an opening tomorrow at 10. "A recorded statement?" I asked. "Yes, just a formal Q&A. To get your version of events locked in." I looked at the phone. Locked in. He wanted to trip me up. He wanted me to say something inconsistent that he could use to void my policy. "Hold on," I said. "I am going to conference in my attorney." "Oh," Evan said. I did not know you had retained counsel." I dialed Janelle's number. She picked up on the first ring. "Janelle, I have Evan Durnell from Northlake on the line. He wants a recorded statement tomorrow." "Absolutely not," Janelle said, her voice coming through the speaker sharp and clear. "Mr. Durnell? This is Janelle Cross. You are notifying my client of a potential denial based on allegations of arson. We will not be providing a recorded statement." "Ms. Cross," Evan stammered, "it is a requirement of the policy to cooperate with the investigation." "She is cooperating," Janelle said. "Send your questions in writing. We will provide written affidavits, but you are not going to put a trauma victim in a room and grill her so you can fish for a contradiction. Send the questions by 5 o'clock. We will respond within 48 hours. "That is highly irregular," Evan said. So is a fake maintenance log and a missing smoke detector, Janelle snapped. Submit your questions, Evan. Good day. She hung up. Did you hear that? I asked Evan. Yes, he said. He sounded smaller. I will forward the questions. I ended the call. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline. For the first time, I felt the power of having someone stand in front of me. My parents had never done that. They had always stood behind me, critiquing my posture while the world threw stones. That evening, I sat on Serena's porch, watching the sun go down over the messy yard. Serena came out with 2 beers. You look like you are plotting a murder, she said, sitting down on the swing next to me. Not a murder, I said. Just a lawsuit. I took a sip of the beer. I keep thinking about my dad. I keep thinking, maybe he doesn't know. Maybe it is just the property managers, and he is just protecting the investment without knowing the details. Serena looked at me sideways. Willow, I know, I said. I heard him on the phone. But he is my dad. He taught me how to ride a bike. He paid for my braces. He also authorized a poison pill in a trust fund to cut you off if you became inconvenient, Serena said. She didn't sugarcoat it. And he is currently letting you sleep in my guest room while he lives in a mansion paid for by the insurance premiums on the building that almost killed you. I flinched. It sounds so evil when you say it like that. It is evil, Serena said. Look, I know you want them to be good. Every kid wants their parents to be good. But you have to stop waiting for them to admit they were wrong. They aren't going to wake up one morning and say, "Oh, we shouldn't have committed insurance fraud and framed our daughter." They are going to double down, because that is who they are. She put a hand on my knee. You don't have to beg them to love you, Willow. And you don't have to beg them to admit the truth. You just have to beat them. I looked at the darkening sky. I just wanted them to care that I almost died, I whispered. I know, Serena said softly, and the fact that they don't, that is their tragedy, not yours. Don't let them take anything else. The next morning, Janelle called me into her office. She had a stack of papers on her desk that looked like financial filings. I followed the money, she said. I looked into why Hallowbrook, and by extension, the trust, would want the building to burn down right now. The rents are steady, the market is good. Why torch the asset? She slid a document toward me. It was a loan application summary from a company called Linden Marsh Capital. Refinancing, Janelle said. Your parents are trying to pull equity out of Cedar Ridge. A lot of equity, $5 million to be exact. They have a balloon payment coming due on another property in the portfolio, and they need cash fast. Okay, I said. So why burn it? Because the refinance was stalled, Janelle said. Look at the condition of approval. She pointed to a highlighted section. Subject to remediation of structural electrical deficiencies in the main corridor chases. Estimated cost, $400,000. The building had bad wiring, Janelle explained. The inspection for the loan found it, to get the $5 million. They had to spend $400,000 to rip open the walls and rewire the whole place. That is a huge hit, and it takes months. But if the building burns down, I started. If the building burns down, Janelle finished, the insurance pays for the rebuild. The policy has a code upgrade clause. It means the insurance company pays to bring the new structure up to current code. So, Northlake Mutual pays for the rewiring. I felt sick. They burned it to save $400,000? And to clear the path for the $5 million, Janelle said. It is a math equation. Willow, the fire wipes the slate clean. They get a brand new building, paid for by insurance, and the loan goes through. And I am the collateral damage, I said. You are the scapegoat, Janelle corrected. If it is an accident, premiums go up. If it is tenant negligence or tenant arson, they can claim they were victims of a bad renter. It keeps their record cleaner. She looked at me with profound sadness. It was never personal. It was just business, which, in a way, makes it worse. I met Miles at the site again. The smell of wet char was fading, replaced by the smell of mildew. He led me to the third-floor hallway. He knelt down by the baseboard, where the wall met the floor. I got the lab results back on the samples we took from the carpet tack strips, he said. And? Hydrocarbons, Miles said. Specifically, a medium petroleum distillate, charcoal lighter fluid. He traced a line along the wall with his flashlight. It was poured right here, along the baseboard. It soaked into the carpet and the wood. When the fire hit this, it raced down the hallway like a fuse. That is why the spread was so fast. That is why the exit was cut off. He stood up and looked at me. This is officially an arson investigation. Willow, I cannot say it publicly yet because I need the DEA to sign off. But I know what happened. Someone tampered with the alarms, cut the cameras, poured fluid in the hall, and lit it. It was Dale, I said. Mara saw him. We need to prove he was acting on orders, Miles said. Dale Pritchard is a property manager. He doesn't benefit from a refinance deal. He doesn't gain $5 million. He is a pawn. I know who the king and queen are, I said. Then we need to draw them out, Miles said. The meeting was scheduled at the offices of Klein Mercer, the high-end law firm representing Hallowbrook Property Group. Janelle and I walked into the conference room. It was all glass and mahogany, with a view of the river that I used to admire. Now, it just looked cold. Rory Klein was a man who wore suits that cost more than my annual salary. He had silver hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Dale Pritchard was there, sitting in the corner, looking sweaty and pale. He refused to look at me. Ms. Cross, Ms. Bryant, Klein said, gesturing to the chairs. Thank you for coming. We hope to resolve this matter amicably. We are here to discuss the baseless allegations against my client, Janelle said, opening her briefcase. Baseless? Klein chuckled softly. Now, Janelle, let's be realistic. We have the maintenance ticket. A forgery, Janelle said. And, Klein continued, ignoring her. We have the history. He turned his gaze to me. It was a dissecting look. Willow, he said, using my first name like a weapon. We know things have been difficult for you, your parents. They are very worried about your mental state. I stiffened. My mental state is fine. Is it? Klein asked. He slid a folder across the table. Because we have records of some very disturbing text messages sent from your phone to the leasing office over the past month. I opened the folder. Inside were photocopies of text logs. From Willow Bryant, 555-0199. To Leasing Office. Date, October 15th. Text, they are cooking drugs next door. I can smell the ether. You need to come check. They are pumping gas into my vents. Date, October 22nd. Text, why are you watching me? I see the cameras moving. Stop following me. I stared at the pages. I never sent these. They came from your number, Klein said. It paints a picture. Willow, paranoia, delusions, a fixation on chemicals and fires. It looks like a breakdown. And tragically, breakdowns often lead to accidents. This is spoofing, Janelle said, slamming her hand on the table. Technology allows anyone to mimic a caller ID. You know that? Can you prove it? Klein asked smoothly. Because to a jury, this looks like a troubled young woman who set a fire in a paranoid episode. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a sympathetic purr. Willow, your parents want to help. If you drop this crusade, this denial, they are willing to arrange for treatment, a private facility. They will pay for everything. You can get the help you need, and this whole ugly legal mess goes away. I looked at him. I looked at Dale Pritchard, who was staring at his shoes. They were gaslighting me on an industrial scale. They had manufactured a digital paper trail of insanity so they could lock me away in a facility if I fought back. My parents were willing to institutionalize me to protect their refinance deal. I felt a cold calm settle over me. It was the calm of the dead. I do not need treatment. Mr. Klein, I said, and I do not need my parents' money. It is a generous offer, Klein warned. The alternative is a criminal trial where these texts become public record. Think about your reputation, your future. My reputation? I asked. I stood up. You can tell my parents, I said, my voice steady, that I am not the daughter who hides in the bedroom anymore, and tell them to check their own fire alarms, because I am coming for the whole house. Come on, Janelle, I said. We walked out. My legs were shaking, but my head was high. In the elevator, Janelle looked at me. You were amazing. But that evidence, the texts, that is dangerous. If they get that in front of a judge, it creates doubt. It is fake, I said. We just have to prove it. We walked out of the building into the gray afternoon. Miles was waiting for us by his car. How did it go? He asked. They are playing dirty, Janelle said. Spoofed texts painting Willow as paranoid. Miles nodded grimly. I expected that. They are building the crazy arsonist narrative. He looked at me. Willow, I have a question for you. It is a hard one. Ask it, I said. Do you have anyone in your life who benefits if you look irresponsible? Not just generally, but specifically? Is there any mechanism, legal or financial, that triggers if you are deemed unstable? My stomach dropped. The trust, I said. Explain, Miles said. The Bryant Family Stability Trust, I said. There is an amendment. If I am found legally combative or financially reckless or liable for damages, I am disinherited. My share goes back to the principal. The principal being your parents, Miles said. Yes. So, Miles said, by framing you as a paranoid arsonist, they not only get the insurance money for the building, they also legally steal your inheritance. It is a double dip. He shook his head, a look of disgust crossing his face. That is motive, he said. That is the golden key. It proves they had a reason to manufacture those texts and that maintenance log. It ties the spoofing directly to the financial gain. He opened his car door and pulled out a clipboard. I need a formal statement. Willow, not just an interview, a sworn affidavit. I need you to state for the record that you suspect your parents are the beneficiaries of the fraud. I need you to name them as suspects. I looked at the clipboard. This was it. If I signed this, there was no going back. No more Thanksgiving dinners, no more polite phone calls. I would be declaring war on the people who gave me life. I would be the daughter who tried to send her father to prison. I thought about the heat on the doorknob. I thought about Mara Sloan trembling in the diner. I thought about the treatment they offered, a cage to keep me quiet. I thought about the silence on the phone when I called for help. Not our problem. I took the pen from Miles. They aren't my parents anymore, I said. They are just the owners. I pressed the pen to the paper and wrote my name, Willow Bryant. It looked different than it used to. It looked sharper, stronger. Let's file it, I said. The official summons arrived on heavy, cream-colored bond paper that felt absurdly formal given the context. It was an invitation to a multi-agency findings conference regarding the structural incident at Cedar Ridge Flats, to be held at the Marrowgate Municipal Center on November 10th at 9 a.m. I held the paper in my hands, feeling the weight of it. It wasn't a court date, but it felt like one. This is the pivot point, Miles Kessler told me over the phone when I read him the date. This is where the fire marshal decides whether to close the file as undetermined cause or to refer it to the district attorney for criminal investigation. It is going to be a political room. Willow. Political how? I asked. Hallowbrook will be there. Their lawyers will be there. The insurance observers from Northlake will be there. Everyone in that room, except for me and you, wants this fire to be an accident. Or, if it has to be arson, they want it to be a tenant issue. They want the path of least resistance. You have to be prepared to be the resistance. I looked at the soot-stained sneakers I was still wearing because I hadn't justified buying new ones yet. I am ready, I said. Janelle Cross turned her bakery office into a war room. We covered the walls with oversized sticky notes, creating a timeline that stretched from October 1st to the night of the fire. "We need to turn your life into data," Janelle said, uncapping a red marker. "They are going to paint you as emotional, chaotic, and paranoid. We defeat that with boring, hard facts." We pinned up the emails, the fake maintenance ticket, the trust amendment, the phone logs showing the spoofed texts. "Here," Janelle said, pointing to the gap between November 1st and November 3rd. "This is the kill zone. This is where they set the stage, the password reset, the alarm service call, the key duplication." She handed me a binder. "I want you to write down every single interaction you have had with your parents in the last 6 months. Dates, times, what was said. If they mentioned money, write it down. If they mentioned the building, write it down." "It feels like betraying them," I said quietly, staring at the blank page. "Documenting my own mother." "They documented you first," Janelle said, her voice gentle but unyielding. "They created a paper trail to ruin you. Willow, you are just correcting the record." I spent 4 hours writing. As I wrote, the fog of familial guilt began to lift, replaced by a cold, stark realization of how long this had been coming. The subtle comments about my instability, the way my father had steered me away from visiting the property on weekends, the way Celeste had asked, weeks ago, if I had updated my renter's insurance. It wasn't just a betrayal, it was a long con. That evening, I drove to the Motel 6, where Mara Sloan was still staying. I had promised to bring her some donated clothes Serena had collected. When I got to room 112, the door was cracked open. "Mara?" I called out. Pushing the door gently, Mara was sitting on the bed, her knees pulled up to her chest, rocking back and forth. In her hand, she clutched a piece of paper. "They know," she whispered when she saw me. "They know I talked to you." "Who?" I asked, rushing to her side. She handed me the paper. It was a sheet of notebook paper, torn from a spiral binding. On it, in block letters written with a thick black marker, were 2 words: "Keep quiet." "It was taped to the door when I came back from the vending machine," Mara said, her voice hitching. "I was gone for 3 minutes. Someone was watching me." "Did you see anyone?" "No, but I heard a car drive off. A silver car." I felt a chill. A silver car. "I cannot testify, Willow," Mara said, tears spilling over. "I cannot do it. They will hurt me. I am just a bartender. I do not have a fancy lawyer. I do not have a trust fund to fight over. I just want to be left alone." She looked small and terrified, and for a moment, I wanted to let her off the hook. It would be easier. It would be safer for her. But then I thought about the fire. I thought about how the smoke had tasted. I thought about the people who had almost died because my father wanted a lower interest rate on a loan. "Mara," I said, sitting on the bed next to her, "if you stay quiet, they win. And if they win, they will keep doing this. To you, to me, to the next tenant." "I am scared," she sobbed. "I know," I said. "I am scared too. But we are going to the police station right now. We are going to file a report about this note. We are going to put it on the record." "The police won't care about a note," she said. "They will when Janelle calls the captain." I said, "You are not doing this alone anymore. I will walk in there with you. I will sit next to you while you talk. I will drive you back here. We are a team." Mara looked at me. She wiped her nose on her sleeve. She saw something in my face, maybe the new hardness that had formed there since the fire, and she nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." The next day, Serena and I were sorting through a box of mail that the post office had finally released. It was a sad collection of singed catalogs and water-damaged bills. "This is garbage," Serena said, tossing a wet flyer for pizza into the trash. "This is—" Wait. She held up a white envelope. It wasn't damaged. It looked new. "This is a confirmation from the Postal Service," Serena said, "for a change of address." "I never changed my address," I said. Taking the envelope, I opened it. Dear Willow Bryant, this confirms your request to forward all mail from 404 Elm Street, Unit 304, to PRO, Box 992 in Birchline, Ohio, effective date, October 25th. I stared at the date, October 25th, 10 days before the fire. I do not have a P.O. Box in Birchline, I said. Someone diverted your mail, Serena said, her eyes wide. That is why you never got the inspection notices. That is why you didn't see the warnings Hallowbrook claims they sent. They were sending them to a box they control. They stole my mail, I said. That is a federal crime. It is smart, Serena said, a dark appreciation in her voice. They made sure you were in the dark. They could send registered letters to your address knowing you would never sign for them, then claim you were non-responsive. I looked at the confirmation again. It was another brick in the wall they had built around me. But now, I could pull that brick out and use it to smash the window. We need to find out who rented that box, I said. I called Miles immediately. He listened to the details about the PAO box without interrupting. Add it to the pile, he said. But I have something better. I tracked down Arbor Light Systems. The fake vendor? The ghost vendor, Miles corrected. I had a friend in cybercrimes pull the IP logs for the creation of that vendor profile in the building's management software. The profile was created on November 1st at 10 in the morning. Okay, I said. The IP address used to create the fake vendor matches the static IP address of the Hallowbrook Property Group main office, Miles said. Specifically, the terminal in the manager's office. Dale, I breathed. It gets better. The recovery email for the Arbor Light admin account, it was a burner Gmail account. But they made a mistake. They linked it to a recovery phone number. He paused for effect. The number is registered to a corporate cell phone paid for by Bryant Management, LLC. That is your father's holding company. I closed my eyes. There it was, the direct link. My father hadn't just known. His company phone was the fail-safe for the system that blinded the alarms. It is not definitive proof of arson, Miles warned. They can claim it was an administrative error or a rogue employee using company assets, but it ties the knot tight. It puts your father in the room. He is going to be at the hearing, I said. I know, Miles said. Bring your armor. Willow. My phone rang at 7 that evening. The caller ID said Mom. I almost didn't answer. But Janelle had told me to document everything. I pressed record on the app Janelle had installed on my phone, took a deep breath, and swiped green. Hello, Mother? Willow, Celeste said. Her voice was different than the last time. It wasn't cold. It was warm, syrupy, vibrating with a desperate sort of affection. Oh, honey, we have been so worried. I have barely slept. You locked me out of the house 3 days ago, I said. I was in shock, Celeste said quickly. You know how I get with my migraines. I wasn't thinking clearly. Gordon and I have been talking, and we just feel terrible about how this has all spiraled. You living in a stranger's house? It is not right. Serena is not a stranger, I said. We want to help, Celeste said. We want to set you up. There is a lovely condo in Riverside. We could put down the deposit for you, get you furniture, get you settled. Why? I asked. Because we are family, she said, and families help each other. We want to put this whole ugly mess behind us. The lawyers, the investigators. It is just hurting everyone. What is the catch? I asked. No catch, she said, too lightly. Just, we would need to have a little understanding. A private family agreement, just a document saying that we resolve all our differences privately, promising not to pursue any legal actions that would embarrass the family name. It is standard for people in our position. I gripped the phone. An agreement to not sue you. An agreement to move forward with love, she corrected. If you sign it, we can transfer the funds for the condo tomorrow, $50,000, to get you started. $50,000, The exact amount mentioned in the trust amendment as the threshold for liability, if I took it. I was bought and paid for. You are trying to buy my silence, I said. We are trying to support our daughter, Celeste said, her voice sharpening slightly. Don't be difficult. Willow, this is a lifeline. Take it. No, I said. Willow, she warned. Think very carefully. I have thought, I said. And I would rather sleep on the floor than take your hush money. Tell Dad I will see him at the hearing. I hung up. My heart was pounding. But it wasn't from fear. It was from the thrill of finally cutting the cord. Gordon didn't call. He texted, "Meet me at the Skylark Diner. 8 a.m. Just us. Please." I showed the text to Serena. "Don't go," she said. "I have to," I said. "I need to look him in the eye before the hearing. I need to know if there is anything left of my father in there." The Skylark Diner was a neutral ground of chrome and grease. Gordon was sitting in a booth in the back. He looked older than I remembered. His skin was gray, and his expensive suit looked like it was hanging on a hanger rather than a man. He didn't stand up when I approached. He just gestured to the seat opposite him. "Willow," he said. "Dad." He didn't order coffee. He just folded his hands on the table. "Your mother is fragile," he said. "This investigation, the stress is killing her. She is not sleeping. She is taking pills." "The fire almost killed me," I said. "I didn't sleep for 3 nights because I kept hearing the crackle." Gordon waved his hand dismissively. "You are young. You bounce back. But if this goes to court, if this becomes a scandal, it will destroy our standing. The investors will pull out. The refinancing will collapse. We could lose everything." "You should have thought of that before you disabled the fire alarms," I said. Gordon's eyes snapped up to meet mine. They were cold. Hard flints. "I did what was necessary to protect the asset," he said. "Business is about managing risk. Sometimes you have to make hard choices to save the larger structure." "I am not a structure," I said. "I am your daughter." "Then act like it," he hissed, leaning across the table. "Stop digging. Stop talking to that fire investigator. You are burning down your own inheritance. Willow, do you understand that? If we go down, the trust goes down. You get nothing." "I don't want the money," I said. "Everyone wants the money," he shouted, causing a waitress to look over. He lowered his voice. "Everyone wants the money until they don't have it. You think you can survive on righteousness? Righteousness doesn't pay rent." He reached out and grabbed my hand. His grip was painful. "Please," he said. It wasn't a beg. It was a command disguised as a plea. "Let it go. Say it was an accident. Say you left a candle burning. We will take care of you forever. You will never have to work again." I looked at his hand on mine. It was the hand that had signed my report cards, the hand that had taught me to drive. Now it was just a claw trying to drag me down into the dark with him. I pulled my hand away. "You aren't asking me as my father," I said. "You are negotiating like a broker." "I am trying to save you from yourself," he said. "No," I said, sliding out of the booth. "You are trying to save yourself from me." I walked out of the diner into the bright morning sun. I didn't look back. The conference room at the municipal center was airless and smelled of floor wax. A long rectangular table dominated the space. On one side sat the fire marshal, a stern woman named Chief Hedges. Next to her was Miles Kessler, looking sharp and dangerous in a dark suit. On the other side sat Rory Klein, Dale Pritchard, and 2 suits from Northlake Mutual. And in the back, sitting in the observer chairs, were my parents. Celeste refused to look at me. Gordon stared straight ahead, his jaw clenched. Janelle and I took our seats at the end of the table. "This is an administrative findings conference," Chief Hedges began. "The purpose is to review the evidence regarding the fire at Cedar Ridge Flats and determine the official cause." Rory Klein cleared his throat. "If I may, Chief, Hallowbrook Property Group has conducted its own internal review. We believe the evidence points clearly to tenant negligence." He slid a packet of papers toward the center of the table. We have a documented history of hazardous storage by the tenant in Unit 304. Paint thinner, solvents. We have texts, disturbing texts, indicating paranoia and instability. We believe Ms. Bryant, in a moment of confusion or carelessness, ignited the fire. He looked at me with a sad, pitying smile. "It is a tragedy," Klein said. "But it is not a crime. It is a mental health issue." I felt the blood rush to my face. My cheeks burned. I could feel the eyes of the insurance agents boring into me. They wanted to believe him. It was the easy answer. I looked at Janelle. She squeezed my arm under the table. "Mr. Klein," Janelle said, her voice cutting through the room like a razor. "That documented history is a fabrication." She slapped a folder onto the table. "We have proof that the texts were spoofed. We have proof that Miss Bryant's mail was illegally diverted to a PDO box in Birchline 10 days before the fire. And we have the trust amendment that gives the owners, Mr. and Mrs. Bryant, a direct financial incentive to frame their daughter." The room went silent. The insurance agents shifted in their seats. "That is preposterous," Gordon spoke up from the back. "Family matters are not relevant here. They are when they provide the motive for arson," Janelle said. "Chief," Miles Kessler said. He stood up. He didn't look at the lawyers. He looked at the fire marshal. "Let's talk about physics," Miles said. He turned on the projector. The screen filled with the image of the burnt hallway. "The fire did not start in the unit," Miles said. "It started here, in the corridor. The accelerant pattern is consistent with lighter fluid poured along the baseboard." He clicked the remote. The graph of the alarm system appeared. The alarm system was manually blinded by a user logged in as Arbor Light Systems. That user account was created from the Hallowbrook manager's terminal. Dale Pritchard wiped sweat from his forehead. "And finally," Miles said, "the smoke detector in Unit 304. It wasn't destroyed. It was removed. The screw holes were clean." "That is speculation," Rory Klein snapped. "Maybe the tenant took it down herself." "Why would she take it down and then burn her own apartment?" Miles asked. "Unless she wanted to die?" "As we said," Klein countered. "Mental instability." "There is no instability here," Miles said. "Only calculation." The room was tense. The narrative was shifting. But it wasn't broken yet. Klein was good. He was planting doubt. Then, the door to the conference room opened. A man in dirty work clothes walked in. He looked nervous. He was holding a manila envelope. "Excuse me," he said. "I was told the fire investigator was in here?" "I am Investigator Kessler," Miles said. "I'm Frank," the man said. "I'm a contractor. I do drywall work for Hallowbrook sometimes." He looked at Dale Pritchard, who had gone pale. "I was in the building on November 1st, Frank said, doing patchwork on the second floor. I took some photos of the work to send to the office for billing." He handed the envelope to Miles. "I was looking through them last night. I saw something in the background of one of the shots I took near the stairwell." Miles opened the envelope. He pulled out a glossy 8x10 photo. He looked at it. His eyebrows went up. He walked over to the projector and placed the photo under the document camera. The image appeared on the big screen. It was a candid shot of the hallway. In the foreground was a patched wall. In the background, standing in the open doorway of Unit 304, my apartment, was Dale Pritchard. He was holding a red toolbox, and in his left hand, clear as day, he was holding a white, round smoke detector. The date stamp on the photo was November 1st, 1432. 2 days before the fire, the silence in the room was absolute. "Mr. Pritchard," Miles said, his voice deadly calm. "Is that the detector you claimed was destroyed in the fire?" Dale Pritchard didn't speak. He looked at Rory Klein. Klein looked at the photo, then closed his laptop. "I think we need a recess," Klein said. "I think we need the police," Chief Hedges said, reaching for her radio. I turned around in my chair. I looked at my parents. Celeste had her hand over her mouth. Gordon was staring at the screen, his face a mask of stone. He knew. In that moment, he knew the wall had fallen. I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I just looked at them. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one who was afraid. The atmosphere in the Marrowgate Municipal Center changed the moment the photo of Dale Pritchard hit the screen. It was no longer a conference room. It was a crime scene. Miles Kessler did not smile. He did not look triumphant. He looked like a machine that had finally been given the correct fuel. Within hours, the investigation, which had been a slow bureaucratic crawl, accelerated into a terrifying sprint. "We are reopening everything," Miles told me as we walked out of the building, flanked by Janelle. "I have already called the judge. We are getting warrants for the Hallowbrook servers. We are subpoenaing the personal bank accounts of Dale Pritchard, and we are pulling the raw data from the alarm panel hard drive." I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It wasn't happiness. It was a vibrating, low-frequency dread. I had wanted them to believe me. I had wanted the truth to come out. But now that it was happening, I realized that the truth was a wrecking ball, and I was standing right next to the wall it was about to hit. "What happens to Dale?" I asked. "He will be brought in for questioning," Miles said, "and once he realizes his employers are going to let him take the fall, he will start talking. They always do." Janelle touched my arm. "This is the dangerous part, Willow, when people like your parents realize they are losing control. They do not surrender. They lash out. You need to be careful." The next morning, the tone from Northlake Mutual shifted. I was sitting in Janelle's office when the call came in. It was Evan Durnell. He didn't sound like the arrogant adjuster who had lectured me about candles anymore. He sounded tired. "Ms. Bryant," he said, "we have received the new evidentiary file from the fire marshal's office." "And?" I asked. "We are pausing the denial process," he said. "The reservation of rights letter is still in effect, but we are suspending the investigation into tenant negligence." "You mean you are suspending the investigation into me?" I said. "Yes," Evan said. "However, I must warn you, the claim is being moved to our Special Investigations Unit. It will be reevaluated in light of potential fraud and arson. This means the payout for your personal property is still frozen until we determine the true cause of loss." "The cause of loss is that my landlord burned down the building," I said. "That is a theory," Evan said, retreating into corporate safety. "Until there is a criminal conviction or a confession, Northlake must protect its reserves. We will keep you posted." I hung up. "They are protecting themselves," Janelle said, not looking up from her laptop. "Institutions have an immune system, Willow. Even when they know they are wrong, they will fight to keep the money until the last possible second. Don't expect a check. Expect a war of attrition." Mara Sloan came to the station 2 days later. She was wearing a heavy coat and sunglasses. Even though it was overcast, I met her in the lobby. She was shaking. "You are sure I can do this anonymously?" she asked. "At first?" "Miles promised," I said. "Your name stays out of the press until the trial, but the statement has to be on the record." We went into the interview room. Miles set up the recorder. Mara took a sip of water and began to speak. Her voice was quiet, but it didn't waver. "I saw Dale Pritchard," she said. "It was 2 a.m. He was outside Willow's door." "Tell me about the sound," Miles said gently. "It was a click," Mara said. "A sharp metal click, like a lock turning, but not a key. It sounded like he was picking it, or using a tool. He went inside. He was in there for less than a minute. When he came out, he had the smoke detector. And then? He went to the utility closet at the end of the hall. I heard the spraying sound, and then the smell hit me. It was sweet, like lighter fluid, like what you use for a barbecue." She paused, twisting a ring on her finger. "There is something else," she said. 2 weeks before the fire, Dale came to my apartment. He knew I was behind on rent. He told me that the owners were looking to clear out the building for renovations, but they couldn't evict everyone legally. "He said that?" Miles asked, leaning forward. He said if I agreed to move out voluntarily by December, he would wipe my debt, Mara said. He said they needed the building empty. He called it an arrangement. He said the owners were getting desperate to restructure the financing. Did he mention the owners by name? Miles asked. Mara looked at me. He said, the Bryants. He said the Bryants were breathing down his neck. I felt the air leave the room. Hearing a stranger say my family name in a police interrogation room made it real in a way that nothing else had. It wasn't just a domestic dispute anymore. It was a conspiracy. I had to see them. Janelle advised against it. Serena begged me not to go. But I needed to look at them one last time before the subpoenas hit. I needed to see if there was any remorse, any crack in the facade. I drove to Larkhill Heights on a Tuesday evening. The house looked exactly the same. The porch light was on. The autumn leaves were raked into perfect piles. It was a picture of suburban peace. I rang the bell. Celeste answered. She was wearing a silk robe. When she saw me, her face tightened, but she stepped back to let me in. We heard about the photo, she said. Her voice was brittle. Dale is an idiot. He was always an idiot. He was your employee, I said, walking into the foyer. He was doing what you told him to do. We told him to manage the building, Celeste said. We didn't tell him to stand for pictures holding safety equipment. You told him to clear the building, I said. Mara Sloan gave a statement. She told the police about the pressure to empty the units for the refinance. Celeste stopped. She turned to look at me. The warmth I had heard on the phone a few days ago was gone. Her eyes were cold, hard marbles. You are enjoying this, she said. Aren't you? You are enjoying tearing this family apart. I am trying to survive, I said. You burned my home. Mom, you diverted my mail. You tried to frame me for arson. We were protecting the future, she snapped. Your future. Who do you think the trust is for? Willow? It is for you. Everything we do. The investments, the refinancing, the hard decisions. It is all to build a legacy. And you are too short-sighted to see it. A legacy of fraud? I asked. A legacy of survival, she hissed. Do you know how hard it is to maintain this life? To keep the wolves away? Sometimes you have to cut off a limb to save the body. The building was a drain. It was failing. We fixed it. You almost killed me, I said. Celeste let out a sharp, frustrated sigh. She looked at me with a mixture of pity and disdain. You always ruin things when you don't understand them, she said. The words hung in the air. You always ruin things. It was the sentence that defined my childhood. If I cried, I was ruining the dinner. If I asked questions, I was ruining the mood. And now, if I refused to be framed for a felony, I was ruining the financial portfolio. I understand perfectly, I said. I understand that I am worth less to you than $5 million. Don't be dramatic, she said, turning her back on me. Gordon is in the study. He doesn't want to see you. Tell him I saw the authorized guest form. I lied. I hadn't seen it yet, but I knew it existed. Celeste's shoulders stiffened. She didn't turn around. She just stood there, frozen, as the realization hit her that I wasn't guessing anymore. I walked out of the house. I didn't slam the door. I closed it gently, sealing them inside their mausoleum. The next day, Miles called me to his office. You were right to bluff about the form, he said when I sat down. Because we found it, he placed a photocopy on the desk. This is the access log for the secure key box in the management office, Miles explained. Usually, only Dale has access, but on November 3rd, the night of the fire, the log shows that a temporary master key was issued at 10 in the evening. Issued to whom? To an authorized guest for the purpose of inspection support. Miles slid a second document over. It was a single sheet of paper. Standard Hallowbrook letterhead. Authorization for temporary key issuance. Guest name, Gordon Bryant. Reason, final walkthrough/refinance compliance. Date, November 3rd. At the bottom was my father's signature, the same jagged, aggressive signature that was on my birth certificate. He signed out a key, I whispered. He signed out a key 5 hours before the fire, Miles said. And we have the electronic journal from the alarm panel. At 2 a.m, a keycard was used to access the basement maintenance room where the alarm panel is located. The keycard ID matches the one issued to Gordon Bryant. I stared at the paper. He was there, I said. He wasn't just giving orders on the phone. He was in the building. He was in the basement, Miles corrected. He used his key to enter the alarm room. He likely cleared the trouble signal himself after Dale disabled the sensors upstairs. He stood there, watched the panel warn him that the system was compromised, and he reset it. He made sure the alarm wouldn't sound. I felt sick, physically sick, my father, in his expensive suit, standing in a dirty basement, pressing a button that would ensure his tenants slept through the smoke. He claims he thought it was paperwork, Miles said, his voice dripping with skepticism. We interviewed him this morning. He says he signed the form days ago and never picked up the key. He says the electronic log must be a glitch. He is denying he was ever in the building that night. But the key card was used, I said. Yes, and unless he can prove someone stole his identity and his signature, the physical evidence puts him at the scene of the crime. Miles leaned back. This is it, Willow. We have the property manager planting the accelerant and removing the detector. We have the owner disabling the safety systems. It is a conspiracy. The story broke on a Friday. The Marrowgate Ledger ran the headline, Arson Probe Targets Prominent Developer. My phone started ringing at 6 a.m. Reporters, bloggers, people I hadn't spoken to in high school. I didn't answer. I sat in Serena's kitchen, watching the news feed scroll on my laptop. They used a picture of my father from a charity gala. He looked distinguished, trustworthy. Then they showed a picture of the burned apartment building. Sources close to the investigation alleged that safety systems were deliberately disabled. You are famous, Serena said, pouring coffee. She looked worried. Or infamous. They aren't naming me yet, I said. Just the tenant. Give it time, Serena said. Once the lawyers start leaking, your name will be everywhere. They are going to try this in the court of public opinion. She was right. By noon, a source close to the Bryant family had given a quote to the paper describing the tenant as a troubled young woman with a history of estrangement and paranoia. They were sticking to the script. Even as the walls crumbled, they were reciting their lines. The hearing was scheduled for Monday. It was a formal public hearing by the Fire Safety Commission to present the final findings. It was the step before criminal charges could be filed. On Sunday morning, I went to the grocery store to buy food for Serena's cat. When I came back, the front door of Serena's house was open. "Serena!" I screamed, dropping the bags. I ran inside. The house was silent. "Serena?" She walked out of the kitchen, looking pale. "I am here. I am okay." The door. "Someone broke in," Serena said. Her voice was trembling. "While I was in the shower, I heard a noise downstairs. By the time I got down here, they were gone." I looked around the living room. The TV was still there. Serena's laptop was on the table. Her purse was on the hook. "They didn't take anything?" I asked. "They took one thing," Serena said. She pointed to the coffee table. My binder was gone. The binder Janelle had given me. The one with the timeline. The one with the copies of the spoofed texts. The one with my handwritten log of every conversation with my parents. "They took the evidence," I whispered. "They didn't take the originals," Serena said quickly. "Janelle has everything digital. They just took your copy." "It wasn't about the documents," I said, feeling a cold shiver run down my spine. "It was a message. They wanted me to know they can get in here. They wanted me to know I am not safe." I walked to the door and looked at the lock. It wasn't broken. It had been picked, cleanly, professionally. "We can reach you anywhere," I said to the empty street. The Marrowgate Municipal Auditorium was packed. Reporters lined the back wall. The front rows were filled with city officials, insurance representatives, and Hallowbrook lawyers. I sat at a small table with Janelle. Across the aisle, my parents sat with Rory Klein. They looked impeccable. Gordon was wearing a navy suit. Celeste was in gray. They held hands. They looked like the victims. Miles Kessler stood at the podium. He adjusted the microphone. He looked tired, but his hands were steady. "The investigation into the fire at Cedar Ridge Flats is complete," Miles began. His voice boomed through the hall. He went through the technical details, the burn patterns, the accelerant, the camera outage. The crowd listened in silence. Then he got to the human element. "We have determined that this was not a random act," Miles said. "Nor was it an act of tenant negligence." He paused, looking directly at the table where my parents sat. "The evidence indicates a systematic dismantling of the building's life safety systems by individuals with administrative access. We have identified the use of unauthorized master keys. We have identified the falsification of maintenance logs, and we have identified a financial motive involving a stalled refinancing deal." A murmur went through the room. Rory Klein whispered something to my father. Gordon didn't move. He stared straight ahead, his face a mask. "It is the finding of the Fire Investigation Unit," Miles continued, "that the fire was incendiary in nature, arson, committed to defraud the insurer and facilitate a commercial transaction." The cameras flashed. "We are recommending that the District Attorney's Office pursue criminal charges against all parties involved in the management and ownership of the property for conspiracy to commit arson, insurance fraud, and reckless endangerment." He stopped short of saying the name Gordon Bryant. He didn't have to. Everyone in the room knew who the ownership was. Miles stepped back from the podium. The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Rory Klein stood up, waving his hands, declaring the findings speculative and defamatory. I didn't move. I sat there, watching my parents. For the first time, Celeste looked at me, across the aisle, across the chaos. Our eyes locked. She looked terrified. The mask had finally fallen completely. She wasn't the matriarch of Larkhill Heights anymore. She was a woman who knew that the police were coming. She looked at me with a pleading expression. A silent beg, "We are family. Don't let them take us." I looked at Gordon. He was slumped in his chair, his hand covering his eyes. The authorized guest. The man who had signed the form that almost killed me. Janelle leaned over to me. "This is it, Willow," she said. "The D.A. will take the referral, but they will need a complaining witness to make the charges stick. They need you to sign the formal criminal complaint." She slid a document in front of me. Affidavit of complaint. "If you sign this," Janelle said softly, "there is no going back. They will be arrested. They will go to trial. They might go to prison. It will destroy the family permanently." I looked at the paper. I looked at the pen. I thought about the heat. I thought about the smell of lighter fluid. I thought about the note on Mara's door. I thought about the break-in at Serena's house. But mostly, I thought about the silence of the phone when I called for help, the silence of the alarm that never rang. My parents had built a world on silence. They had relied on my silence to keep it standing. I picked up the pen. The room was loud, but inside my head, it was finally quiet. I looked at my mother one last time. She mouthed the word, "Please." I looked down at the line where my signature belonged. The evidence was strong. The suspects were close. But the choice, the final, irrevocable choice to be the one who struck the match that burned it all down, was mine. I held the pen over the paper, the tip hovering just millimeters above the white surface. "Not my problem," I whispered to myself, and I pressed the pen down. Thank you for listening to Willow's story. This journey through the smoke of Marrowgate has been one of betrayal, gaslighting, and the slow, painful realization that sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones holding the matches. I would love to know where you are listening from today. Are you tuning in from a quiet apartment in the city, or perhaps a house in the suburbs? Please leave a comment below and let me know if you enjoyed this realistic, slow-burn revenge drama. Please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories. I have many more tales of justice and retribution to share with you. And please, share your thoughts in English in the comments. What would you have done in Willow's place? Would you have signed the complaint? Or would you have walked away? Until next time, keep your smoke detectors checked and trust your instincts.